All right, we're recording. It's time for some write once, read many. That's not a
Eh,
thing you ever do on this show, is it? That you
I
just
I I'm
loudly
can't
exclaim.
even remember if I've title dropped that at all because it's just like
Well,
um
here,
I don't know.
today's the reveal. This is the big day.
Yes.
Ooh. All right, we've got a stream available now. Great. I'm gonna play
Oh,
it
hey
and mute
Victoria
it.
or
There we
Vic.
go. Hello, Victoria, Vic. And yes, let me make sure I can see the chat. Hello. Okay, great.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks for joining people as you're joining. I'm very
It's
excited to be
Greg.
doing this again. Hi, Greg.
All
Hi,
right.
Greg.
So, it's all sorted now. I'm going to put the reminder of the audience participation question uh, to
Great.
seed it into all your brains. Just talk about your thoughts on the tonal shifts in 4.5 and 4.6. And then, David, you had your own wording of this that you wrote right here.
Tonal shift stuff. If you could just talk about the tonal shift stuff, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Um,
Stuff.
and then we didn't write out the theme super heavy, but I just thought we could
Yeah, we
like
can
kind of
briefly
spin
touch
out
on them.
about them. Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like the 4.5 in particular has lots of like class consciousness about like the history of the city and like the underserved portions of it. The use of this storage area as like emergency housing for a bunch of desperate people and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. Like we'll talk about it throughout the chapter, but I thought that was really well woven in since I think it's really important to the story overall, but it's not always so explicit.
Oh yeah. Well, and especially for this, where like it really does a good job at sort of setting the scene for that chapter and where all of this takes place. Like it's a pretty in-depth description that is not only just relevant to like this moment in the story, but yeah, speaks a lot to the history of Brockton Bay and offers a nice insight into a lot of the background stuff going on.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Bill. Um,
Hello, Vale.
and then the other stuff that we'll talk about as kind of as it happens, but also a little afterward too, is the bullying, the hero villain banter, and the kind of mix of both. Oh, it's Megafire. Hey.
Hello,
Um,
Megafire.
so yeah, there's that overlap. Oh wait, Greg's saying, when do we get to see the samurai sword wielding pizza delivery boy who lives here?
uh, I think that comes up in one of the next chapters after this. I know they're kind of like a main character from that point forward, so we just don't want to like spoil it too soon, you know.
Yeah. Oh, and 2 plus 4 times 5 is audio only, but is listening.
You're driving to work, so I'll have to leave in a few minutes. Oh, well, thank you
Oh,
so much for joining for the little bit you can. I hope you get to get some
oh
time
wait, I
to
misunderstood.
watch back afterwards. Enjoy work
Oh
today,
yeah,
if
yeah,
that's a
yeah. Okay,
thing
so
you ever do. Enjoy your work.
yeah. I didn't think it was possible for a work of art to make me disrespect Uber and Leet even more. Nicely done. Good comment, Vale.
Absolutely. Yes. And a big shout out to Vic for the art again. I absolutely treasure these two little guys. Uh, I do despise them completely, but I love them. I love them, and they look very cute here.
Yeah. They're such dorks. Thanks,
Yes,
Greg.
ultimate dorks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, mhm. But yeah, yeah, for the themes on this one, they're kind of more generalized in our approach this time, but I think there's plenty to talk about, especially regarding the bullying slash hero villain banter stuff in this. They
Yeah.
lean into it pretty heavily in 4.6.
I especially had wanted to get the stuff you were talking about, how you think, and I agree that there's like the overlap where it's kind of both, and like at it felt at first when we were talking about it like you were like it's not bullying because it's hero villain banter, and then we sort of like quickly led to the oh it still is bullying.
No, it's super bullying. Well, yeah, because it starts out where you're like, okay, this is the classic tete-a-tete. This is the back and forth we would expect. But then, like the rule of satire and all that, it's like always be punching up, never punch down. And there definitely hits the moment in this where they're clearly just punching down at these two, and it starts to just feel really mean.
Definitely, definitely.
Vale
Um,
says, if they were Twitch streamers, who would they have for sponsors?
they would
Oh,
be
you would
crypto
have.
scammers, like for
Oh, yeah.
sure.
I was thinking like a really off-brand energy drink or something.
Oh, okay, maybe yeah. I was thinking they would do like all the like really kind of scummy stuff. Like they'd be like sponsored by like a gambling site, and they would even have like tie-ins where some of the gambling was about them when they were doing their crimes and stuff.
It would be good to see them do like a fake casino themed caper, I suppose.
Well, there is a real
Um,
casino in Brockton Bay. It's the one,
oh,
the Sunset Dreams. That's the one that the Undersiders robbed. I think 3 weeks before
oh
the story
yeah.
starts.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Gambling,
Ruby
streams,
Dreams. Yeah.
crypto, and Diablo Immortal. Got it. Yep, exactly.
Exactly.
That's perfect. Um,
Vic says about her
yeah.
own characters, they're so fucking dumb. Or they look so fucking dumb.
They, yeah, I mean, you depicted them perfectly. Unfortunately, how they're supposed to be depicted is like a bunch of big fucking idiots.
Oh, that was my
Uh,
proposal for what I'd want to see as an uber elite caper, a dicey dungeon theme heist of the casino. Yeah, where they dress up as characters from
mm-mm-mm.
dicey dungeons who are just like D6s but with arms and legs and a face.
That would be fucking brilliant. Yes, but we will get very much into the ins and outs of Uber and Leet during this one. Yeah,
This
so do
is
we want
kind of
to?
like their biggest chapters because they do not feature
Yeah.
heavily in this book.
No, they're vaguely mentioned here and there, but after a certain point, I think they kind of just fall to the wayside because they've served their narrative purpose.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so do you want to start off or should
Uh,
I?
no, I don't mind starting off. Feel free to just jump in wherever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, starting in 4.5, the gang is on their way to the hiding spot of the Cashola, worried for Rachel, but definitely also concerned about the money. Taylor notes the beauty of this post-rain sunset, which is very well depicted in Vic's art. Um, she notes how the group is pretty notably different from the ones who were just out enjoying a meal together, like kind of bantering and getting to know one another and bonding. This has a pretty clear demeanor shift now that they've caught wind that Rachel was MIA. Um, so they suit up on their way out, and as they kind of move through the train yard where all these lockers, these storage lockers are, um, Taylor describes this in a very like Last of Us sort of vibe. Lots of overgrown hoopla, trash, decay, very, very abandoned. And I think here's where we start getting into what we were talking about of the class consciousness, where she does paint a pretty thorough picture of like just how disheveled and forgotten this is, and how it's been used by various people over time. Like a
Well,
lot of people. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I think what makes this different from like just oh, there's a bad part of town is that like this gets directly into the like material history of the place and the fact that it's
Yes.
directly linked to like economic events like
Hmm.
the docks drying up and then the boat graveyard later and like you'll keep hearing the same like kinds of stories and like the timeline is consistent and like it makes
Hmm.
sense like what happened and like it links to how events happen in the real world as well
Very
and
much so. And
so it's like pretty
it's
impressive I think in that way
yeah,
whereas
yeah.
it's pretty easy to just have like oh there's this like really dingy area, and like that's just the end of it, you know?
Right, yeah, and what I was gonna say on that is like it's not something you would ever see like in the Avengers in any significant way, you know? Like they don't care about the small or I don't want to say small town, but like the more localized events happening and the larger impacts those have on the people who live there. This is really nice because it paints a much wider picture outside of just what's going on with the Undersiders specifically, but also tells you like here's a lot of the circumstances which are influencing various things going on through within the story. And yeah, you don't get that a lot. Most people will add a spooky location like this and be like, it's spooky and no one goes there except the bad people. But in this case, they talk about like how at first that was used as a place of refuge for some people, like when they needed a cheap place to live. And then slowly it did devolve into um the more seedy area in which like people selling drugs or villains or others just doing nefarious things kind of came in and ruined it for everybody basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then yeah, some good chats going on here. Vale, oh, have you all listened to Decomposing Worm podcast? They talk about some of the same in their arc 1 through 8 coverage. It's pretty cool. I think William,
I
you've listened
I
to
have listened
some
to
of that.
that. The most
Yeah.
recent time I listened to it, I think I was re-listening at the beginning of Arc 3. There was some chapter where I was writing the the
The
outline, and
summary
I
for it.
wanted to
Yep.
remember something they had said, so I re-listened to that again. But I had
Yeah.
re-listened to them, like that episode in particular, as well as the like We've Got Worm arc one, when I was
Mhm.
first working on the outlines for chapters 1 through 6, which I slammed out 5 chapter outlines in the first day I worked on it, and then it took me
Oh,
like
damn.
weeks to get done with 6 and the Danny chapter. But
Oh gosh. Yeah, and as Vale continues, and Vale, you actually brought up exactly what came to mind for me as well. But in the Avengers slash MCU, when the small time person shows up, they tend to become a villain. Like the Vulture and Spider-Man Homecoming movie. Yeah, this is who I thought about too, where he's a working guy building a business and gets destroyed by the powers that be, including Stark. Yeah, totally. That felt like the closest to something like this we get. But as you mentioned, they pretty quickly just become like a villain or at least minor antagonist. Whereas in a situation like we're seeing here, uh, it paints a lot more sympathetic of a picture, I think. And it's
yeah.
it's not people who just decide to become bad or whatever. It's like people who are more or less forced into poverty and desperation, and thus sort of positioned to have to make very, very tough choices about how they move forward.
Hmm. Yeah, for
Um,
sure. And
yeah.
we had sort of talked about this, that Taylor didn't seem to empathize as well with the people at the beginning of the story. And I thought that it's a combination of factors, but like she can more easily castigate the people in those first sections, like when she's like, "Oh, the drunks and the whores."
Yeah.
Yeah, um,
Very
uh,
Old Testament.
yeah, when she's going on about that, but the people here were more directly, like they were closer to the sort of perfect victim narrative. So I think it's a combination of like that early on version of Taylor even feels bad for prostitutes this chapter. Yeah, see, there you go. I was gonna say that it's a combination of that perfect victim thing, but also her having a shifting sense of things where she is um, like this is like literally a week later from the other thing, but she already has a better attitude towards poor people and like unfortunate people in society. Um,
Which is so nice because I really want to like Taylor throughout the story, and it's shit like that that made me be like, I don't know, man. But it is nice to see a slight change of heart from her
she's
in such
also
a quick amount of time.
15.
Also
and
that,
like
yeah,
heavily
you can't be
bullied.
totally mad at her. Yeah, yeah. It makes sense that stuff like that would color her view of the world and the people around her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I guess sorry, just one more
Oh
thing
yeah.
on that. It does remind me, you know, it her with who her yeah, Taylor is part dumb Vale, but or is part dumb kid. But it's cool that she is so close to like working class people, like with her dad being like a fucking union guy and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
think William, you and I briefly talked about this during our chat, but um yeah, it's a bummer that she has kind of a narrow view on those types of things initially, but yeah, like I think she does have a frame of reference for actually offering some like empathy towards folks in that position.
Yeah. Also, though, I feel like you only did half of Vale's joke. Taylor is part dumb kid, part spider.
I'm so sorry, Vale. Yes, exactly.
Um,
Um,
and then
yeah, if you
we had also talked about how like the uh we sort of see the rise and the fall of the different accommodations throughout the city where like they used to use these sections, but then as the docks became vacant, um the unhoused people were able to move into the docks, and then there were much more spread out like warehouses and things, so it wasn't close quarters. So there were other problems, but the disease issue from living in these really, really close quarters storage units was not as big of a problem.
yeah, which in a very like specifically out near the docks and stuff, you'd think like disease would run rampant in areas like that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess it's just
Uh,
even worse here.
yeah, 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 apparently.
So, oh,
But yes, can oh,
Bill says Taylor's primary concern from the start, moment one, is always protecting those who are less able to protect themselves. She expands her
mm,
understanding of what that means over time.
ooh,
Yeah,
great way to put that.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, so moving on, I guess we can keep going. Where were we? So yeah, as they're kind of marching forward, um, through the docks and through these storage lockers, they've got this very somber tone about them as they're all kind of waiting to see what's going on. And Gru breaks the silence, noting the number of the locker they're looking for. And it doesn't take them too long. Like, and the way Taylor paints this all, it's like it's very labyrinthian. Like it's not well organized. There's not a clear structure. It's kind of just like as things were dropped there, they were given a number. So they, despite that, they arrive there in a pretty timely manner. Um, and Taylor is quick to note the sort of ghastliness of the situation. It feels just very, very desolate and uneasy. Um, Gru's able to open the lock pretty quickly, and upon entering the door, announces shit. Uh, Taylor describes seeing the lack of money in the locker and the very dinginess of the locker. Um, and it doesn't take long for the group to kind of start speculating about what happened. Regent specifically immediately starts putting the blame on Rachel, walking through all the reasons why she wouldn't do this terrible thing, and being surprised by the sort of apparent circumstances, says, "I vote we kill her." Likely being kind of glib, but I think Taylor is quick to be like, "Hold up, you think she would do that?" And then he, yeah, very thoroughly is like, "If you had asked me a couple hours ago, I would have definitely said no. But given this, I'm thinking, hell yeah." Um, so yeah, Taylor and Regent go back and forth, kind of speculating until Tattletale breaks that shit up, being like, "Nah, man, she ain't do that. This was just some couple chumps who are here right
Right
now,
now.
and they are right now, and they are here. They're so here. They're standing on the roof, looking stupid, trying not to fall off, and you hear all of a sudden a very distant, quiet, that shitty, condescending, slow clap, but it's poorly executed. It does not come off in the way that they want it to. And
I
lo and
like here. I just want to point out to the audience that I think in Vic's drawing it kind of looks like he's doing that like palms and fingers flat and just using your shoulders to move your arms, not bending your elbows, kind of like very odd clapping.
uh, yeah, I think that's a perfect way to view that. And as the art depicts, these two costumed fucks look totally ridiculous. But we know who they are
Wink.
because of a wink, because of how ridiculous they look. And they have that classic kind of dynamic between them, uh, of the classic like big buff guy and then the small scrawny guy. Also, Vale, you are on fire in the chat here. Uh, Uber did not use his power to slow clap effectively. This could have been the best slow clap in the history of all slow claps, but no. Um, and I think that alone summarizes the entirety of Uber right there.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So, uh, Tattletale, unimpressed, offers him a very like a wry sort of knowing Uber and Leet. Um, and here's a quote from her. Um, I can't tell you two how relieved I am. For a few seconds, I thought we had something to be worried about. And Uber declares that they should, in fact, be worried because he declares he's a guy who declares things, which says a lot about his entire personality. I liked Taylor's kind of note of him being sort of giving off the impression of like the overly dramatic gallant knight or like a movie trailer guy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Also, as a side note here, uh, I did realize Harry Potter is confirmed in world fiction. She makes mention of the snitch, and uh, just wanted to note that in this world of crazy powers, someone still had the gall to create Harry Potter, which is a lot less impressive in this context
Yeah,
now.
I got to imagine that it probably didn't do as good numbers when it's like also Murder Beam exists in this world.
Right, yeah, it's like, okay, so there's people who have shitty powers and they need a dumb little stick to do it. Like, that guy can definitely shoot lasers out of his palms, so I don't know what you want from me on that.
Yeah.
Um, and that would have meant J.K. Rowling got the treatment she deserved. So,
Oh
is
boy.
that too hot of a take?
No,
Um,
I feel bad for 90s JK Rowling even if she sucks now cuz I really do
yeah,
think
true.
that money makes you like lose your mind and become evil.
Yeah, actually, yes, very true. Um,
I don't think she would
Vic,
be like such a like have such crazy takes if she wasn't entangled in like actual circles of elites and stuff in Britain.
yeah, that's probably pretty
So,
true.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Vale says in the chat, I refuse to be guilty for loving Tattletale so much. She is one of the best characters ever in anything. I can physically feel her pure, brutal snark and sarcasm. It's brilliant. Wholehearted agree there. And Greg says, wonder if there are differences in Bet's Harry Potter. Ooh, yeah. So, okay, there is a
Wizards fight
consistency.
heroes
Yep.
or capes.
Ooh. That would be great, actually. I would definitely want to watch that. See how magic and I I was gonna call it science, but it's hard to call it that match up.
It's some science. I think that in
Yeah.
this case the science wins just because the powers in Worm are much more powerful than the magic in Harry Potter. Like
Yeah.
some Harry Potter is magic is pretty powerful, but we almost never see it like actually getting cast. It's like we see oh this magical artifact or like this castle or whatever later, but like in this like legend exists. So
Yeah, like a Dementor ain't got shit on Legend. Also, you're a parahuman, Harry. Off to Hogwarts. Very good.
Mirrodin is a huge JK fan. Oh man, he probably is. I am
uh,
not a nerd. and he opens the dimension, and I always imagine him having like the voice actor for Yugi Moto, Dan Green. I
Oh
imagine him
God,
having the
that
Dan
would be
Green
so
voice.
good.
Talk to
That's
the
fucking
hand.
perfect. I am not a nerd.
Anyway,
Very good. Do you want to kick us off
yes,
from where we're at
yes,
here?
I totally can. I have been neglecting my reading duties. So, Uber and Leet, they're villain cape streamers. They broadcast their escapades for the world to see, for better or for worse. They really do. I feel like streaming wasn't a big thing when this book was being written. It was starting to be a thing, but just
Yeah,
like,
pretty early days though.
yeah, because I know that like obviously Twitch was Justin.tv, but I can't remember when streaming like became something that normal people watched. You know what I mean? Not just for
Yeah,
nerds. Um,
yeah. Sorry, forgive my ignorance here.
mhm.
When did Worm start being published?
2011.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, streaming was probably just coming into fashion at all at that time.
Yeah, yeah. It was pretty new.
Yeah.
Twitch actually started June 2011. Crazy stuff. So I guess
Oh,
Twitch, it had changed from Justin to Twitch around that time.
oh, hot damn. Streaming grew 5 times since COVID, very roughly. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, even just in the last few years, it's blown up significantly.
Yeah. Um, Makes sense. I mean, with everything.
Yes.
Um, Most of the growth is outside the US. Interesting.
Oh,
Taylor has tuned in but stopped watching Taylor has tuned in the past to their stream but stopped watching because it felt like abuse. Because they're so terrible. She made a comparison to feeling like she was Emma, Sophia, or Madison looking down on her. So in that moment, she could recognize her own bullying insides, but later, you know, in other bullying
kind of just lets it
situations,
ride.
yeah, she's like, "This is pretty important. I better bully them."
Yeah, yeah. Justifiable bullying to a degree, but definitely bullying.
Look, when you push Uber off of a one-story building, is it really that bad?
Is it really that bad? Doesn't he land like straight up on his face?
I
Like,
I believe that's what it says.
yeah.
Yeah. Who
Yeah,
bullies the
pretty rough.
bullies? Okay. Yes. So Taylor covers the camera that they use to do the stream with bugs. It's their snitch. You fucked with us. I fuck with your subscriber base. Yeah, she really is bad at the banter at the start.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's got. I thought she did pretty well in her interaction with Glory Girl and Panacea, but she definitely had like Tattletale leading the way. And
Yeah.
this one, every time she kind of chides in, it's just like, all right, Taylor, we get
I
it.
feel like she's trying to play it up for the camera, and she's bad at it, and is like literally less. She has less presence than she normally does because she's trying to ham it up.
Yeah, yeah. I think when she lets off with her like usual instincts, I think it plays better. But here, she's a little too aware.
Yeah. Um. Vic says, "I thought that was a good line." I I did not. Uh,
I thought it was very funny. I
I
didn't
think
think it
it's
was like
funny
too
in
cringy.
it's funny like when Victoria Dallin says a really crappy line, like when she says something she thinks is funny, but it's like no one else ever has laughed at. Yeah, it's the groan laugh. And Greg says he groaned when she said, "I'm game." Later on in the chapter, terrible pun. I didn't think that was a pun.
Oh,
I thought that
yeah,
was
I
just
didn't read that
natural
as a
speech
pun.
patterns.
Oh, see,
I this
I
is
didn't
this is
shudder
new.
at I'm game.
Yeah, this
Huh.
is a new like reading of that for me. Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess if she intended it as a pun, that's god awful. God awful.
but I
But
definitely didn't think so.
yeah, I hadn't read it that way. Um,
Oh yes. So, do you want to jump back in? We'll just switch off mode.
yeah, yeah. Yes. So from there, Regent makes reference to the fact they have. Oh, no, no, no. I'm sorry. We skipped one bit.
Oh,
Uh, oh, no, no, no. You noted it. Her covering up their camera or the snitch with the bugs. That's that quote.
yeah.
But yeah. So then Regent makes reference to the fact that they have themes for their capers, each related to a new video game. As Taylor kind of elaborates. Um, Uber tries to be a big sass pants at Regent, but our boy ain't having that. Before he can finish his sentence, Regent is already throwing hands in the way that makes Uber fall face first off the roof. Um, and then Regent laments Taylor blocking the camera feed. He wanted those sweet, sweet, sweet clicks.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Vic,
Gru,
Vic,
oh, go
you're
ahead.
spoiling the game. That terrible barf-worthy line doesn't happen until next chapter.
Oh yeah, yeah. But don't worry, we'll address that because yep, very barf worthy. Uh, yeah. So despite all the, I don't know, kind of the lighter moments, Gru is the one, of course, to get sort of down to business as Leet tries to assist Uber, and he gives off a very "Where's the money, Lebowski?" kind of vibe. He's basically just trying to get to the bottom of shit. Um, and then Leet basically reveals it was more or less, which speaks to their qualifications here. But Leet kind of reveals it was basically happenstance that they found the money after following Rachel. He is a little cheeky about now as to how we found Rachel. Wink. Uh, but yeah, they don't really elaborate too much on that point just yet. Um, Yeah, here, feel free to jump back in, William.
Yeah, so Gru expresses concern about their street cred. If they don't slam these dunks right into the ground.
Sorry, that
What a
was
turn
my
of
writing,
phrase.
not Williams.
Yes, this is all David's writing here. So, um, don't kill them, but don't hold back. We got to get some answers. That is the paraphrased Gru.
Yes.
Um,
And just because I didn't fill in the gap there, before Taylor's next line, I think it's Tattletale who says "No holds barred," and that's where Gru is like, yeah, just don't kill them, but we got to be able to interrogate them.
mm-hmm. And he specifically wants to defeat Uber outright, and then leave Leet conscious to interrogate him because Uber could probably slip the knot of any kind of bonds they put on him. And
Hmm.
Vic said while we were joking about the spoilers, Vic said, "I'm sorry, I'll comment on it next chapter."
Oh,
Um,
good, good. Please do.
and then Taylor says the hated line, "I'm game," which again, I just read that as normal speech because I also talk like that.
Yeah, yeah. It's something I'd probably say as well. But also now I'm like, was it a
They for
pun?
real
Is
say
that her
no holds
intention?
barred every chapter.
Well, don't bar those holds, please. They're not for that here.
Bar more holds, please. I love how holds that are barred. I can never do it right, but Taika Waititi's Hitler is just the greatest character.
Oh my God.
More bodies, please. I love bodies.
Uh, yeah, yeah. So, for after Taylor says that line, I mean, this is basically like she gets pretty jazzed at this situation, because I mean, ironically, I suppose, but like this is why she's here. Like this is her chance to go, full all out on some villains who are clearly doing a bad thing. So she gets to feel very justified in fucking them up. Um, yeah, I mean, it's not like the reason she's here, but she definitely wants to be fucking up some chump ass villains. And she smiles behind her mask
Whether
like a
they're
bug.
chumps, chumpettes, or non-binary chumps.
Yes, yes, please cover the full gambit because regardless, they're chumpish.
that's their enemy tag, chumpish. That's how we know what classification they are.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure there's brutes, there's thinkers, there's tinkers, there's chumpish.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Wildbow is really thorough in the descriptions on that, which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's all we had for 4.5.
Do you have any
We're
like
kind of
non-specific chapter thoughts about like I mean I really like this chapter generally. I didn't like it as much the first time I read it, I don't think. I thought that Arc 4 was a little weak, but I like it better now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think on my first read, like, I don't know, I am realizing after like reading through this all again and us talking about it all, but I didn't have that critical of a view of a lot of things on my first go around. So I don't think I fully grasped just how preposterous Uber and Lee are. Like, but I've while I do find them a little grating and outright silly, I absolutely love them. I think they're such a necessary character type in this world because it shows, I don't know, like how seriously some people really take their powers and how not seriously some people really take their powers. Um, yeah, and we kind of get into that a little bit more in the next chapter, but yeah, it I think this is an interesting one, and I don't think I have had a negative view of this chapter or this arc as a whole, but I do like it. It definitely feels like we're warming up to something a little bit bigger. But this is just sort of setting up a new kind of normal for Taylor and the Undersiders. So I think it does a pretty good job at that.
Yeah. To address to go back for 1 second to the thing that Vic said about no holds barred.
Yes.
I just confirmed 4.5 is the first time in the book that no holds barred gets said.
Oh, okay. But after this, it's probably like every chapter, or at
Probably
least
like
once
every
in an arc.
chapter. Once every chapter, in fact.
Yeah.
They just keep saying it.
Literally once every chapter.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, Vale says it's funny how many times that happens for me. Rereads, I get to see so much going on that isn't obvious the first time through. Yeah, I'm huge that way. Like I am not a very like critical reader on my first read, or I guess I'm just kind of a slow reader. So when I usually audiobook this, so I don't know. I kind of just soak it in as a general feeling on my first go through, and then I'll start picking apart details much later.
Okay, so they tell Rachel to go all out, but I thought you meant the way sometimes he overuses a phrase because
Mm,
like I thought it was like the whole and I think he only does it like two or three total times, but because it's so specific, it's like noticeable. The the mighty oak is destroyed by the rainstorm that the supple willow can withstand or whatever, and it's like the wording is exactly the same. Um,
right.
so bitch says just let me go all out, and then Gru says no.
Nah, not happening.
So that's the
Uh,
actual interaction in the bank robbery. Is the opposite of what you're saying. Is she's specifically told no, you cannot go all out.
yeah,
Um,
but they say it all the time. But also, they're just
um,
always like, "Don't hold back."
but
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
let's see here.
Also,
What's happening? It's copacetic. The must be a Canadian thing. It
copacetic.
brought to mind a positive from a negative. Oh yeah, yeah. Taylor's whole thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
oh,
Also,
but
I just
Greg was
want to go
saying I
back and
think
address.
they're more
Yeah,
goofy to throw how brutal Bakuda is into sharp relief. Yeah, that is I think
wholehearted
what the
agreement.
purpose of them in this chapter is.
Yep. Which
Anyway,
I mean, I think it does that pretty
moving
successfully.
on.
Yeah.
Do we want to go into
Yeah, well,
4.6?
yeah, we'll dive right in.
Oh my
You want to
Gerb,
kick
I'm
us off?
not hearing anything you're saying.
Oh no. Oh no.
Okay. My sound somehow got muted and I was not hearing anything for a while. I
Oh,
think.
okay. Okay, yeah. I was
If you
yeah,
were
I was
talking
chiming in
and
a
I
little
was
bit.
talking over you, then I apologize because
No,
I was
totally,
hearing
totally
nothing.
fine. All good. Don't even trip. But yeah, I was gonna say if you wanna kick us off with 4.6, feel free.
Yes, yes. I don't like that there's controls halfway down this headset that I can accidentally sit on, which I have
Oh
done
yeah.
during this podcast or this stream. Um,
Rookie mistake.
yeah, rookie mistake. Oh yeah, okay. So Taylor takes notice of Uber and Leet muttering to one another, clearly scheming. When Uber notices they're being noticed, he bellows, "Enough talking!" Um, Taylor laments the amount of bug friends nearby. Clearly not enough bugs to go full bug. And it kind of reminded me of that the drawing. Is your child texting about bugs? And so I think in this case, she would probably text IDC, I desire caterpillar. Um, she would BT dubs, bring the worms. Um, she would probably want to. She wishes she could type SMH, so many houseflies, but
My God.
she's probably gonna type NBD, need bugs, definitely. Um,
That's
anyway,
brilliant.
so due to the harsh, non-living or non-life-inducing environment, she's left primarily with moths, cockroaches, and the occasionally spooky spiders. Um,
Yes.
mhm.
And with no time to dwell, Uber brings the attack to them on that. And there's a really nice bit about Uber's power here that Taylor says. I'm just going to read the quote. Uber's power made him talented. It didn't matter if it was playing the harmonica, parkour stunts, or Muay Thai. He could pull it off like he'd been working on it for hours a day for most of his life. If he really focused on it the way I understood it, he could be top notch. And which, yeah, like is a bummer because I mean, just talking about Uber in a more general sense, like when we were mentioning this earlier, but it's like I would love that power so much that if I could just focus on something hard enough, I would just be good at it, like great at it even. But it's and we get to this in a second, but yeah, it's really really well juxtaposed by his whole demeanor.
Yeah,
Um,
well, also, I was reading like an explanation of like a bit more detail, and the way that he had described it in like non-story material was that
hmm,
it's kind of like technique based. So like he can do the jump kick, but like and like he'd have to like switch focus. He could do like the jump kick and the landing from the jump kick as like a technique, but he
right.
couldn't then like switch into another move from the same like kind of martial art without like
Mm.
thinking it through. So he's like specifically bad at comboing things, it seems like.
Yeah, it's like a single action sort of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and Vic says, I think Leak could be good too. I think, and we also touched on this. I guess we could talk about it now, but um, Leet, Leet's power has a lot of great opportunity, but I think, William, you were noting this earlier. It's like it would need to be so thought out ahead of time, like as to what things he's going to create and invest in, because as it's noted, he can only do them once. So, you could easily like burn through a lot of hypothetically brilliant ideas or really effective ideas like really quickly just in your experimentation phase. But if you had someone more guiding those efforts or the type of person who would be thoughtful enough to guide those efforts ahead of time, it could be really effective and more situationally, I suppose. But like here, where we're seeing like how even each of the bombs are a little bit different, it seems like, and maybe I misread that, but that's what it seemed like. Um,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I think you're right. I think that even like he can't even mass produce the same little gadget, even if
right.
they're really like not a big deal. But what I was thinking is like because of his I can do anything once, his power seems like he could make ridiculously big plays. They just have to like know what that play was. And like um I feel like you could combo his power with like let's just say the thing that the labyrinth scrub combo.
Mm,
Like I'm talking like big moves like that. Um,
yeah.
like that's the kind of mover and shaker I think he could be. Not the classifications, but that's the
Right.
kind of like big player I think he could be if he was using his power in a smart way. I just don't think that that would ever happen.
Yeah, and that's the bummer because, like, hypothetically, Uber and Leet could be like a top tier team, but just because of who they both are, it really just doesn't work out that way. Um,
To get back on
ooh,
the chat real quick, Vale had made a joke
yeah,
about Uber not being a GTA RP streamer, but a DGen chess streamer. And
ooh.
then Sigma said, or well, Greg said, with great opportunity comes great ability to fucking blow it. Uh, and then Vic said, Leap plus teacher. And yes, Leap plus teacher would be an
That would be an
insane combo.
incredible one. Yeah, that would be awesome. Like, I think Lee would make an excellent pawn for a teacher for sure.
Well, because also he could probably take out the negative aspect. I think he could just make his power the do anything power because teacher can
Yeah,
like seriously alter how someone's like limitations work.
right.
Or like Leet plus Anjanu, but that would require Anjanu to be into Leet.
Ooh,
It wouldn't happen.
ooh, would never happen. Not once.
Oh man.
But yeah, we can keep moving forward. Yeah, so after Taylor makes that observation about Uber's power, she kind of takes the "ew, don't touch me" approach to fighting him. She wants to stay away and not get up in his business. But of course, Gru is quite the opposite and gets right up in their business, swallowing himself and Uber within a cloud of darkness. Until he sort of spits him out of the other side of that darkness. Presumably, Gru has knocked him back in some way. And Uber falls right onto his hindquarters, but quickly recovers with a very cool guy spinny kicking move that brings him back to his feet. And Taylor's quote here is, "The juxtaposition of clumsiness and technique was outright bizarre." And personally, I really felt that on like a deep level because that feels like my life also. Uh, I feel like a perpetual bull in a china shop with immaculate precision in weird places. Uh,
That's funny. I it kind of made me there's this stupid moment that happened once where Greg's younger brother Charlie broke his pinky falling down the stairs, but he
oh
did it because
God.
he was charging down the stairs at full speed with a bowl of olives held aloft. And I don't think it's true, but in my brain's version of the story, like he somehow managed to not spill the olives when he like destroyed himself on the staircase.
Which is the best. I mean, a man's got priorities, and olives are number one.
Yeah, so my legendary Charlie, he saved the olives. Um,
It's like all those Mountain Dew commercials or whatever from back in like the early 2000s, where like a car does like a bunch of spinny flips in the air, but they're holding the cup in such a way that not a drop spills.
you gotta save it. It's precious cargo.
Yeah.
Um, so Taylor continues to try to amass a swarm of bugs, but is trying to be more mindful with her approach to utilizing them because she thinks back to fighting Lung and Kidwin and how large portions of her swarm were easily destroyed by like either Flamios or lightning version Flamios. Um, and you don't want that. You
Lots of Hotman.
Yeah, you want bugs, not Hotman.
Yeah.
I think I was gonna kick it back to you for.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, so Uber starts kind of moving around the group like some kind of wildcat, circling the undersiders while Leet sort of steps in. And I think from this point forward, we get a lot of Leet debauchery. Leet reveals sort of this classic old school looking bomb, a black round metal cased bomb. But Taylor notes that it appears sort of fake looking with how the light hits it. She quotes, like it was a picture of a bomb instead of a real one. And you have a great note here.
Look shopped. My
You can
favorite
see, you
hobby
can
to
see.
walk up to real life objects and say, "Look shopped."
I mean, you can see the pixels right there. It's clearly shopped.
Yeah.
And then of course, Regent works his magic and causes Leet to drop the bomb.
I
Uber. Oh,
was,
go ahead.
I had thought to myself, and I'm not going to for copyright reasons, but we could have dropped a little sound clip of "Drop the Bomb."
Oh,
Just drop the
damn it! That would have
bomb.
been perfect.
Yeah.
Uh, would have relived my DDR
Yeah,
days.
we're from the '90s, so we became obsessed with DDR as tweens.
Very much so. And God, I was so good at it.
And I
Don't
was
can't
so
touch
bad
it
at it.
now. Can't touch it now. I got no stamina for that. But back in the day, I was dropping the bombs.
Yeah, yeah.
Which it looks like my cat is also now dropping the bombs. So if you hear cats yelling, everyone, apologies. He's got a real attitude.
I'll take over
Um,
some reading while you scoop that cat to
okay.
pet and possibly placate it.
He's darted out of the room, so I think
Okay,
we're
okay.
safe. But feel free.
But Uber and Leet both bolt out of the way of this shitty bomb, which I imagine to kind of look like Dave Strider's like shitty sword. It's like that, but a bomb. Um,
Yes.
he causes Uber to slip within range of the explosion. Regent does because he knocks him over. And Uber he gets hit by the bomb, but it's not too bad. They're like, wow, he's not dead, and they're able to maintain their footing despite the shockwave. So they're like, wow, what the hell is up with these bombs?
Hmm.
And
Also, just real quick, bye Vix.
oh,
Have fun doing whatever you're doing.
bye Vec, bye. Um, cat cameos are a plus, not a minus.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. But this one is particularly loud. It's gonna be a lot of like wow. That's kind of how he does his meows. It's not very appealing, but you know, that's
Yeah.
his thing. So buckle up.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, and then Tattletale basically starts laying into them. Essentially, lots of like, "You guys suck. Stop trying. You don't even go here." And Leet responds with a very very ridiculous. "Our mission is worth it." As he raises his weak ass chin. And I can say that because I'm a guy with a weak ass chin, so I feel it. Um, and then Tattletale goes off all like, "Yeah, sure, spreading the holy gospel of video games and total bullshit. People aren't laughing with you; they're laughing at you." And we get some real. I mean, that's not a direct quote, by the way, but we get some real big bully energy here from Tattletale.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Uber's like, don't fall for it, bro. She's totally baiting you, but probably more like, don't fall for it, bro. She's totally baiting you. Um, again, Uber is Dan Green. Uh, and then Tattletale is like, correct. I can't even fight y'all, and I don't give a fuck about your
Uh,
terrible garbage.
yeah.
My Tattletale, when it's your quotes, is very different from the real book.
Okay, good. Um, I think we could actually use this to sort of transition into a little special section here, because we made a couple notes, but I think it's probably best done through the.
Oh, I thought maybe we would just sort of
Oh,
zing
sure.
out these couple ones that we got, and
Yeah,
then we
yeah,
jump into it. So you
totally.
had you had made a really good joke at their expense that
Yes. Basically, this all turns like it devolves into a very like classic early high school exchange with the sort of I don't know jocks versus the geeks and the way that Uber Elite defend themselves. As a high school geek, I get it, but also like it's not. It just does not achieve the effect they want, and it kind of knocks them down a notch.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. And in the middle of all of that banter, I think it's Lee attempts to reveal a special guest, but is unfortunately interrupted. Um, and Tattletale basically continues laying into them, attempting to drive a wedge between these two villainous teammates. And again, to misquote her, "Your toad's holding him back, bro. Everyone super hates your dumbass one-off power." And I won't spoil Uber's line. I mean, we all know it, but it's just so fucking goofy.
Yeah, we're gonna do a dramatic reading of this section, and I'm going to try and banish the dog for a minute, who just came in right before the reading. Go, go,
She loves they love the reading.
go.
Well, pupperinos want to hear the drama.
We'll see. Okay, so we are should be good to go. I'll start us off.
All right.
I keep wondering when you guys are going to give up. I mean, you fail more often than you succeed. You make more cash from your web show than you do from actual crimes. You've been arrested no less than 3 times. You're probably going to wind up in the birdcage the next time you flub it, aren't you?
Our mission is worth it.
Right. Spreading the word about the noble and underrated art form that is video games. That's from your website, word for word. People don't watch your show because they think you're righteous. They watch because you're so lame it's funny.
He's provoking you.
Damn right I am, and I can do it because I'm not scared of you. I don't have any powers that are useful in a fight, and you guys don't intimidate me in the least. A guy who's good at everything yet still manages to fuck up half the time, and a tinker who can only make stuff that breaks comically.
I can make anything.
Once. You can make anything once, but the closer something you invent is to something you've made before, the more likely it is to blow up in your face or misfire. Real impressive.
I could demonstrate.
Please don't. I hear the carbonized ash of geek is hell to get out of a costume.
You say geek like it's a bad thing. It's a badge of honor.
Among geeks, sure, but there are clowns that consider being a clown to be a noble calling, while the rest of us just laugh at them. Catch my drift?
Enough! It's obvious you're trying to antagonize us.
I just admitted it. That's not obvious. That's fact.
We won't be baited. I think it's time for our grand
Gru
reveal.
wordlessly
Our
cuts Lead
people's-
off mid-sentence with darkness. They're laughing at you, Lead. You're trying to be all dramatic, all intense for your viewers, and they're just sitting at their computers, snorting over how much you suck. Even Uber is laughing at you behind your back.
Shut up! I trust Uber.
Why are you even with this guy, Uber? I mean, you're kind of lame, but you could at least accomplish something if he wasn't fucking up half your jobs.
He's my friend.
So you don't deny he's holding you back?
Shut up!
Nailed it.
Nailed it. That concludes our dramatic reading. Yeah, I think that whole back and forth is just, it's so much of the Undersiders just digging at them super, super hard, trying to make them lose all sense of confidence and really just undermine their whole jam. Basically just trying to demonstrate what total fucking chumps they are.
Yeah, and I think that pretty much they succeed in this sort of mental warfare thing, and like you can be like, that's Tattletale's power, but on the other hand, all teams should be trying to do this to the other team all the time.
Yes,
So-
100%.
Yeah, just attacking on every level is good in one of these fights because you never know what's gonna stick.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, that kind of makes me think just with how the Undersiders approach this from the top, is it's just like no one's landing like a finishing blow. No one's trying to sort of do anything so extreme that it kind of ends the fight right off the bat. It's just lots of little jabs that very much build up over time until, yeah, literally Leet devolves into just being like, shut up. Like, there's no quip, there's no intelligent retort. He's just like, stop being mean to me, please.
Yeah. True. Sad.
Yep. Sad. Yeah, if you want to pick up from here.
Yeah. So in an attempt to turn the tides once again, Leet comes back with another bomb and is able to lob it before Regent can troll him once again. Gru attempts to shield everyone from the blast by covering himself and Uber in darkness, while the rest scramble. I would guess that this actually does help because he probably like throws down the darkness, then runs like arc-wise so that Uber's between him and the blast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like what's cool I think Gru uses his darkness really like cleverly throughout. Like it kind of is a I don't know, works in most situations for something. Like it makes total sense that it would dampen the impact of the blast for sure too.
Yeah, it seems to neutralize a lot of like power stuff. It's got that
Hmm.
like very minor Trump aspect to it as far as affecting other powers.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, the bomb goes off before Taylor can counter elite. The blast catches her full in the back, but it's not lethal. Taylor notes the abnormalities with the bomb. The air isn't hot and doesn't have any concussive feel to it. She likens it to being punched by a big hand. The bombs are fake? I asked aloud as I picked myself up off the ground. I ached, but I wasn't burned. They're solid holograms, Tattletale said. Actually pretty neat, if you ignore how ineffective they are. I guess he couldn't make real bombs without fucking up.
So
Yeah,
mean, Tattletale.
it's pretty
Rubbing
great.
his nose right in it.
And then David will read this next part while I drop a link in the links section.
Oh
And it's
yes,
also
yes,
in the
yes.
description for anyone listening later.
Yes, and I really think the visual of that video will capture this perfectly, but Taylor's bugs don't seem to be as impacting as the negging from Tattletale and Regent. But thankfully Regent is able to keep Leet tripping over himself. Kind of like one of those videos where someone is slipping on ice for a long time. And this is where we have some video reference, so please enjoy that. I think it conveys the feeling of this fight perfectly.
Yes.
Um, and Leet drops the bombs, of course, because of Regent, and the blast launches him into the side of one of the lockers, though he is pretty quick to recover. Um, and after recovering, he draws a sword from his backpack and is pretty much immediately shamed for going off brand. Um, Regent basically is like, "It's Link's sword, not even a bomb, you fucking idiot."
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and
It's a
then
wrong game, bro.
yeah, yeah, and Tattletale here says, "I think I speak for everyone when I say we just lost what little respect we had for you." Uh,
Yeah.
again, just burns on burns on burns.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so Regent does his thing once again, causing Leet to immediately drop the sword. More slipping on ice ensues, and the sword flickers out of existence. It was a hologram
It
or
was all a
something.
hologram. You know
It
what?
was all.
That makes sorry. I just immediately thought of Will Arnett. It was an illusion, Michael. An illusion.
An illusion.
But I also thought like just now. So we know Regent plays games, and we think that Taylor plays games. But
Mm.
does Brian or Lisa play video games? Rachel does not play video games.
Okay, if they were to be video game players, yeah, Rachel Super doesn't. If Brian played video games, it would either be like arcade style fighters or stuff like Call of Duty would be my guess.
Okay, okay.
I th-
I
I
mean, we
think
we
if
see Regent playing a Halo knockoff.
yeah, which is pretty on brand. That makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think if Tattletale were to play anything, I mean, she's a puzzle game person, right? She'd be playing all those old Nancy Drew games,
Oh
maybe some
man,
Myst.
I just
Uh,
imagined her playing Baba as you. Oh, that'd be nuts. That game's
ooh,
hard.
ooh. Vale says Rachel loves Animal Crossing. Okay, yeah, fair point. She's got a dog island.
I hate to say this, but Animal Crossing kind of takes a lot of reading.
Oh, fair point. It actually, yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, it's actually, if she were gonna play a game, it'd be like your most rudimentary, like arcade style fighter, maybe. Like I know I just said that about Gru, but I
I
mean
think I
something
think
where she can push buttons.
Rachel could play an arcade stick fighter, but Brian plays. You know, I don't think Brian plays Call of Duty. I think Brian plays Smash Bros. I think he's one of those guys who only plays
Oh, my
one video
man.
game. It's like when I was when I was a teen, I knew some people like this who they only play one video game, and that video game is Super Smash Brothers Melee.
You think Brian would be like a melee elitist? Like he'd have his big old CRT monitor?
I mean, it's like you went. The people I'm thinking of, you went to school with. Literally, they
Yeah.
are people who did not play other video games.
I can't drop a single frame, otherwise I could lose.
And it's like, how did you get so good at this if you've never picked up a controller?
Oh my god. Also, Vale, I wholeheartedly agree. Tattletale would play League of Legends a 10,000, whatever, 100,000%. TT would know every detail about every player and make the whole group of friends and enemies rage quit without saying a single thing out of TOS. For fun, of course.
For fun.
Yeah. God, I would hate playing League of Legends with her. I already hate playing League of Legends with most anyone who plays League of Legends, but she would be the absolute worst.
Oh man, I almost got drawn into League of Legends recently because people at work were playing, including Vic, and I was like, no, don't do it. You don't want the social interaction so much that you'll play League of Legends.
It's been a while since I've played, admittedly, but I was on a big League of Legends kick for a while. I will, and of course, like it's one of the most toxic fucking gaming communities ever. But
The matches also last so long. That's one of the reasons I like the StarCraft 2 co-op is because it's just like a nice little experience. You play for like 25 minutes tops if you're really fucking up.
yeah, I do like more. Yeah, as I get older and my life gets crazier, I'm more into low investment games rather than stuff where I'm gonna have to play for like an hour at least.
Yeah. Taylor plays Command and Conquer or StarCraft, any of those games. Yeah.
Oh,
Taylor loves the
yeah.
Zerg. That's her favorite.
Yeah. She would actually.
Yeah.
And maybe, she probably grew up on like Age of Empires or some shit.
Of course. Um, um all right. So, jumping back from my crazy tangent, Taylor gets herself properly in the mix, drawing her baton and bopping Leet a few times. I keep looking at Leet and almost reading it as like a misspelled leaf. I'm like, what? With this font.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
I know it's just Arial, but I'm looking at this basic font and the little tiny T is like, you mean leaf, right?
Oh, you meant leaf, our delicate little leaf boy.
Well, he is that though, also.
Very much so.
But preventing him from drawing more garbage from his backpack, she wheels around, knocking him to the ground, and pulls her baton around his neck, attempting to choke him out. Vic's gonna miss it when we talk in just a second about it,
yeah.
but Leet throws his weight back, knocking the two of them to the ground, and then Gru goes for it. And I'm gonna let you read what you wrote because
Because it's despicable. So Gru here tries to play daddy, in parentheses, gross, and uses this as a nice teaching moment for Taylor. Here's how you really choke out the bad guy. Let me show you. Sensual noises.
puts hands around pool cue.
Yep. Oh God. Wraps his arms around her as she's on the pottery wheel.
Golf swing.
And as she sort of takes his direction, he's like, yeah, no, make sure you're covering the artery, not the windpipe, so you're cutting the blood flow. It'll be much better for you. And so she adjusts her grip, and Gru very regrettably says, "Good girl," and it's the fucking cringiest, most yucko thing possible out of his mouth. Given their age discrepancy, the dynamic here, the fact that that line is anywhere in this book at all,
and the worst part is that line is gonna be used by Colin later too. And it's like, oh no, Colin, don't say that.
Don't do it. We thought Wildbow learned the first time. Megafire says the best part, of course, is that Brian has no idea about any of the weird connotations here. Yeah, I mean, I guess true, because this is a different world and a different time. But boy, howdy, Brian. Don't be fucking gross.
Vale says romantic music crescendo, and I agree. Yeah.
Maybe a different kind of crescendo than you were thinking, but
It gets grisly for a moment as Taylor chokes out Leet, but he eventually slumps over and Taylor gets out from beneath him. She searches for him, cuts the equipment from his, you said warrior's top knot, from his
I
costume.
said, yeah, I said Taylor searches him and cuts the equivalent of his warrior's top knot from his costume. The antenna is gone. All that's left is the shame of defeat.
Yeah, I mean, wrecked.
Also, Vale says, "A good girl is not allowed anymore." Got it. Today I learned. I mean, I guess it depends on the context. Uh, I mean, teach their own for sure. But if you're like an older guy talking to a younger girl, and there's a weird power dynamic there, don't ever say the words "good girl." That's gonna be gross. Um, Also, Megafire continues, oh, not because it's a different world, just because Brian is legitimately that oblivious.
That's what I thought
Yeah,
you meant, actually.
yeah, okay. Uh, yep, he just doesn't get it, unfortunately. Which, I mean, is good
The
that he
whole
doesn't get
thing,
it.
the whole idea is that he has not interacted. I mean, he specifically says he hasn't interacted with that many women later on.
Yeah,
Um,
true. Yeah, and as we just learned in the last chapter, like his upbringing did not make him very privy to, like, I don't know, a lot of larger social things, it seems like.
like, he may be exaggerating a bit, but if he's to be believed, Lisa and Rachel are the third and fourth women that he's really spent much of any time around.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
his mom and his sister didn't really hang out with girls at school, like, would immediately go to, like, boxing gym with his dad.
Yeah, and I imagine the something like the good girl line is probably something his dad would have said to
Aisha.
his yes, thank you, Aisha. Yeah, so I don't know. He's probably just got a very like bad example of a dude in his life. I mean, he clearly does, but yeah. So I don't think he's being intentionally weird or anything like that here. I just think he's a little misguided.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep,
I
yep.
also like since he's been a teen, he's been doing online school for at least 1 year, but possibly like up to 3 years since he got his power. So
Yeah.
kind of like the fact that I went to a high school, like a very, very small high school that had no girls. Like he also is not interacting with teens his own age, aside from
Hmm.
these crims that he lives with. Oh, I guess he doesn't live with them. He's the only one who doesn't live there.
Yeah,
Brian
he's
has a
got his own
fast.
apartment and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, Megafire says Brian has a fascinating relationship with masculinity, and his dad is absolutely part of that. Yeah, for sure.
100%. Yeah, definite agreement there.
All right.
Um, yeah, all right. We'll keep marching on here. We are here. The rest of the gang returns with Uber basically hogtied. They've got I think it was zip ties using to bind him. And they basically just dump him by Leet. Um, and they immediately start kind of speculating as to how to get to Rachel and how to get to the money when suddenly a guest arrives with a spooky mechanical
I
voice.
really feel like
Uh,
this is a wrestling moment. This is just like when they do all the fog machines at once before you're gonna see like Undertaker. This is
yeah,
like her
Undertaker's
version of
about to
that.
enter. Everything goes dark. The fog machines rise, and you start seeing like all the little fire explosives kind of lining the stage. Yeah, it very much has that big, powerful entrance energy. And we hear that mechanical voice say, and I'm not going to do a mechanical voice because it'll be weird, but I really hoped they would take one or two of you out of the picture, or at least injure someone. How disappointing. They didn't even get around to introducing their guest star for tonight. And The person revealed is wearing a similar costume to Uber and Leet, i.e., looking totally ridiculous. Only this time it is with a gas mask covering their face and different colored goggles. I think it was red instead of black.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Bakuda entering the scene. And
And
Tattletale is the first one to put a name to the face.
And
Go ahead,
to
sorry.
to throw Megafire's thing on here, I think it's worth doing in the voice. "Oh my god, it's Bakuto with the steel chair!"
That's
Just
exactly what it is, though.
I'm sure you have a better one. You got a deeper voice than me. Hit us with your. And you watched wrestling when we were kids.
I did.
Oh my god, it's Bakuto with the steel chair.
Yeah, it's very much that energy.
I was thinking of like the
Um,
McMahon horror specifically because he's always just flabbergasted by any given action.
that wide-eyed sort of jowls jostling around.
Exactly.
And so yeah, we have Tattletale saying, "Fuck me." The game their costumes were from Bomberman, or I think that's Tattletale, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and then Regent tries to throw Bakuda off balance, but she's seen enough of his tomfoolery to be falling for any of that. Um, and Regent snidely asks, "You seriously left the ABB to join Uber and Leet?" Uh, and Bakuda
It's
replies
not.
with a
I actually do want to correct. He asked astounded.
astounded. He
He's just
asks,
like,
"Excuse me."
I think it would be so shocking that even he would let emotion into his voice.
Yeah, like, are you fucking kidding me? Really? And Megafire says, "I love Bakuda, and I love that Uber and Leet managed to convince her to actually wear the stupid costume." Actually, yeah, with like how highly Bakuda regards herself, like it is a little bit shocking that she'd go even give them that, because at this point it wouldn't have really mattered. They're already like out of the fight. But I guess they anticipated a little bit more time of Uber and Leet being able to like hold their own so they would look like a cool trio, but instead it's like, oh, it's another one of these fucks. Okay.
Well, I think the idea is that, like, imagining you were a gang of 3 capes who could hold off gangs of like a dozen capes, and you hire two
Right.
more capes, and you're like, these guys are going to be badasses. But it turns out that, oh, this is why we can hold off a dozen other capes, because it's what we're usually working with.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice little comedic moment almost.
I am also
Um
genuinely curious, Megafire. I have no idea how they convinced. Like, did she go to them, or did they go to her, or like? Because I imagine she went to them to try and
I
hire
me
extra muscle.
me too.
That's what I'm
Yeah, I
thinking.
doubt it was the other way
And
around.
then they give her this low ball offer with this really dumbass rider stipulation, and she's just like, "Okay, I guess."
Uh, all right.
And like,
Sure.
it's just crazy because like, she has all this intimidation stuff, but then again, maybe this adds to the intimidation because it's like she doesn't even care if she looks like a dumb fuck.
No, no, not at all. I mean, and despite wearing the outfit of a dumb fuck, as Vic's art shows, still kind of looks like a badass.
Yeah,
Still kind of working it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. So,
Maybe she was a low
Bakuda.
key Bomberman fan.
Oh
Maybe
my
Greg.
God, maybe, yeah, maybe just really loves those old games, and it's like, you know what? I'm down for a little cosplay. Let's do it.
Fuck.
Um, So yeah, after Regent asks if she seriously left the ABB to join them, she goes, "Not exactly." And then do you want to pick up here for this last bit?
Yeah, yeah. So Bakuda snaps a finger, and members of the ABB emerge from the storage lockers. About 30 to 40 doors open, with at least one member behind each lock, or in each locker, but up to 3 and even 4 in some lockers. The tides have turned. Um, those two were cheap hires. They just, and I'm not gonna do the robot either. They just wanted a few $100s, and I had to wear this costume. Guess you get what you pay for. Goes without saying, I'm still with the ABB. Bakuda stated the obvious for us. In charge, matter of fact. I think it's fitting that I commemorate my new position by dealing with the people that brought down my predecessor, don't you agree? She didn't expect an answer, nor did she wait for one. She pointed at us and shouted, "Get them!"
Yeah, and that's where 4.6 leaves off with a very uh, overwhelming situation for the Undersiders. I don't think they've quite been sort of bamboozled like this before. Not in such a drastic way where like they really fell straight into a trap here.
Yeah, they did. Also, I read Vale's comments just now, and I really backfilled a lot of Brad Neely-ness onto them, so I'm just gonna read it out.
Please.
And I know I'm reading these in reverse order, but that's part of the Brad Neely. 23 months as a mod in their channel. She's been a subscriber for years. So yeah,
Also,
Bakuda as a
Megafire.
fan.
Yep. Megafire. All these dudes just sat there listening to Uber and Lee getting their asses kicked. Yeah, yeah, which is kind of funny. It's like clearly all of them were still like waiting
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
for the other shoe to drop, and they're like, whatever. These guys suck. It's fine. We don't need to step in. Well, and they probably clearly, I mean, not probably. They all work for Bakuda and not for Uber and Lee. So I guess it makes sense that they just kind of let them hash it out, I guess.
A thing a thing that I'm going to mention now that I don't know if it's picked up on. I think it's in like 4.8 maybe that they pick up on it, maybe even 4.9. But
Hmm.
like when they're running around in a few chapters, they realize that like Tattletale decides that there's even more too many guys than they expected too many guys based on their new revelations of information. And
Hmm.
they realize that some of the numbers are bolstered out by hard light holograms that aren't actual people. And I
Yeah.
was wondering, are some of the people in this crowd that, or are all of these people real? Like, I thought maybe their numbers were also
Hmm.
bolstered by the same thing, and it's just sort of never explicitly stated because, like,
Hmm.
you can kind of fill in the gaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll
I
examine
mean,
it closely when I read the next few chapters, but I feel like that
yeah,
might be happening.
it could be. I mean, because it's very possible that each locker where someone emerges has maybe one single real person, and then maybe to fill out the numbers, the ones where there are multiples, those could be hard light holograms.
Yeah, maybe because
It's possible.
it's like they do have a lot of extra guys, but I think that it's easy to forget that Leet did provide her with this other device that let her set up like kind of fake blockades of people around the uh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and actually, Megafire does make a good point. I think you'd want the first group to actually be people in case they decide to fight, right? I think you're
Yeah.
probably
Yeah,
right.
that
I
sells
mean,
the ruse of the other ones way harder. You're right.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, Bakuda knowing that the Undersiders are the ones who took out Lung is probably not like going in underestimating them necessarily. Like she comes in with pretty overwhelming force.
Yeah, they really do. They set the jaws of the trap very well. They probably
Yeah,
had
yeah.
lookouts who saw them go in, and then they like went in from lots of different angles and set up a bunch of like the bombs and traps she's going to use, like
Hmm.
because they had such overwhelming numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, we're just kind of at the beginning of this interaction,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think it's pretty dang well calculated from Bakuda's standpoint. Like, yeah, it goes to show you can look like a total fucking idiot and still have your shit together.
Well, I'm thinking also like I guess not all tinkers, but some tinkers like this, like the way she is, like she's probably really good at planning scenarios like this. Whereas like someone like fucking Lee never. Uh,
Right.
but the way her mind works, it kind of makes sense to me because she thinks up these like complicated, crazy things, and then like yeah, because
Yeah.
she comes up with like a fairly convoluted plan to take over the gang, and then she or to expand the gang rather, and then she is
Hmm.
successful. Like
Yeah, like actually is able to follow through on that stuff. And I mean, she got and the next chapter is pretty interesting. You get some nice monologuing from Bakuda. But yeah, the way she sort of creates the or excuse me, like expands their forces and sort of fills that vacuum of power left by Lung. I mean, I don't like the logic behind it, but it's pretty damn effective.
yeah, it's like super evil, but so is like all the really high tier parahuman stuff most of the time. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah, yeah.
wow, what a successful monster.
Man, you're really good at this. I see why you're doing what you're doing.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Um And just because we didn't really lean into it too hard, if we want to maybe just touch on the themes one last
Oh
time.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, class consciousness. I think that's really just illustrated in 4.5 more than anything. It gets touched on again in the next chapter.
I think definitely because we'll see the way they talk about the different like forced into the gang members and like
hmm
previous ABB gang members and like I feel like that's kind of present the way that Taylor views those different people. Um, like even aside from their just baseline, like whether they're doing stuff intentionally or not.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like
Um,
really, like they're all hostages, even the ones who are used to being gang members. So,
right. The way people are indoctrinated into that situation, it's
well,
very
in
much
this
like,
case, but in this case, they're like literally,
oh yeah,
yeah,
actual
all hostages.
hostages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So,
yeah. So well, I guess you'll kind of dive into that in the next chapters after this, but the next bit is just more of this bullying and like hero villain banter and that sort of a thing. Especially in 4.6, like we touched on it decently, but the whole team is kind of, aside from maybe Gru being the exception, the whole team is sort of working pretty hard to make Uber and Leet feel bad, feel dumb, and they're kind of just nonstop berating them both mentally and physically. Again, it feels like they're really punching down
well,
here.
but the other thing
Uh,
is like they're not just doing their normal amount of fight. Like they're literally fighting in front of cameras, and they need to
right.
stomp these people as revenge for. And you know what? I would honestly like if they let's say we're back to our teen villain selves
Yeah.
and someone were to beat up and steal even the shittiest member of our friend group,
Right.
we would fucking stomp that person. I feel like nothing like that ever happened, but were this some sort of anime where that constantly happens, one of the members of a crew gets stolen, you know,
Right.
we would not have let it off lightly.
No, pull no punches, absolutely. And yeah, I guess I don't want to ever frame that as like this is unjustified bullying or whatever, but it's more just like it's those types of tactics which they're using to play a mental game
Yeah.
rather than exclusively a physical fight. Um, and it's pretty successful because I mean, throwing Uber and Leet out of confidence and off their game, I mean, it makes them pretty easy to defeat. Although they were probably pretty easy to defeat anyway. Um,
Hmm.
it just shows like they're going at this from all angles, which is cool.
Yeah.
Um,
I notice that Rachel has been the one who's I don't know about necessarily their previous stuff, but Rachel's been the one who's gotten hurt in both of the last two missions.
mm,
The bank robbery a few days ago and then this, which is only I think this is the next day. Um so she
yeah,
was hurt.
yeah,
She was hurt at the bank robbery worse than anybody else. Even though Tattletale was also hurt.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Rachel really plays the tank role like quite a bit, and just kind of takes the beating because that's her fighting style anyway.
yeah. Let's hit the chat for a second. So
Yeah.
uh first Vale said if Bakuda had any mode except for attack all out all the time, she probably would have held on for a long time. Megafire said, "Love this piece of art, by the way. It's an excellent perspective. And yeah, Bakuda is one of my favorite villains because of that." And then Vale up
hmm
carrots towards Megafire's thing. And then Greg points out off there, game, eh? Uh,
Hey, I see what you're getting at, Gregory.
like a video game,
Like some kind of video game. Hmm?
a
Hmm?
video graphic
Them.
game. Sorry.
All good, all good, all good. Yes, and then it looks like we're ready to move into our characters portion. Couple interesting bits for a few people. I mean, we'll start with just the Undersiders. Regent, I think, is starting to get a lot more consistent. I call this screen time, but yeah, he's getting a lot of additional exposure, and he is I think this, like, he's demonstrated his usefulness already, but this shows again, like, just how these constant sort of little movements with his power are really, really effective, especially with people who aren't necessarily anticipating it.
There's tons of capes that he can just like hard counter 1v1. And when you have like the Undersiders are kind of a small team in this situation because there's only 4 of them, but like they get more allies and stuff. So when you're on a big team, being able to stun lock one enemy and then like shift focus stun lock people, like
Yep.
that's pretty fucking crazy.
It's super crazy, and it's like really hard to predict. I mean, like as to when and how it's going to happen, because he can yank on any of your extremities or just cause like these weird twitches that, like, I don't know, hypothetically, let's say, Leet's got a bomb ready. Regent can either choose, oh, I can make his hand twitch for him to drop the bomb right at his feet, but his feet are still active enough for him to run away, or I can swipe him off of his feet, both dropping the bomb and taking him down. Like, there's a lot of just, a lot of different methods as to how he can apply it. And yeah, I think he uses it really well here.
Even just imagine like let's say they have no bugs and Taylor has to fist fight Uber, and it's somehow Taylor Regent versus Uber, and that's it.
Right.
Well, Uber draws back very small amount for just a good solid punch, but Regent makes it. Uber pulls his hand back, has a spasm, doesn't have the fist anymore. His arm kind of goes awry, and then his other foot pushes him off balance the same direction as the arm. He's on the ground. Taylor's kicking him. Like,
yep, exactly. Like, you don't even need someone who's like, you don't even need someone who's like a fighter like Gru or Rachel, like, to be there. It can be Taylor, who could just yank out her baton and just start beating him while he's on the ground already.
Yeah.
Which maybe isn't the coolest way to go, but it's highly effective.
Regent's pretty sick.
Yeah, and Vale says, or if he really wanted to go full villain, he could close the hands on the bomb. Absolutely.
True.
Yeah,
True.
He could tighten that grip.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's trying to keep a
up.
cool demeanor around his present friends, and
yes.
Yeah, I think he knows they wouldn't really like that.
Yeah.
He's a smart kid.
Yeah. He's been around the block a few times.
I like that Megafire booed us off the stage, by the way, when we set up the game.
I know. Well, we deserve it. Yes, and one more note about Regent is like the moment when he starts getting skeptical of Rachel, immediately kind of assuming like, well, and part of it I think is out of credit to Rachel, like the way he sees Rachel, but he's basically like, well, if Rachel's gone and the money's gone, the only reasonable explanation is Rachel took the money because no one's fucking with Rachel. So, clearly she's just said, fuck these guys and ran off with it. So I think that accusation is rooted in that, like, it's unlikely that Rachel would get bested in such a way that would cause both her to be kidnapped and the money to be gone. But it doesn't really speak to his trust in his teammates, and in Rachel in particular. It just shows that he's like, I don't know. I feel like he's a guy that leads based on the information that's presented like right in front of him. He's not really thinking long term one way or the other.
Yeah, I agree. He doesn't. It's just easier to take things as they arrive.
Yeah, at face value, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, he does think of like he does have his own separate inner world and likes being apart from the group to a certain degree. But it's just like it's kind of complicated,
Yeah, absolutely. And then Tattletale. I mean, she continues to show her. And sorry, I know where you're at. I'm just jumping.
Yeah.
We could do Taylor last. But Tattletale continues just to kind of do her classic Tattletale thing. She uses the information she can gather at hand and uses it to absolutely fucking bully these people, or at least get in their heads, I should say. I don't want to continue to phrasing it as bullying, but she gets in their heads and she more takes a verbal approach and outwardly acknowledges like, yeah, I've got I ain't gonna do nothing physically, but I don't need to. You guys suck. Um, she's very confident in her power and what it can achieve, and also I think a little bit opposite of Regent, like has enough trust in her teammates that she's not even really worried about it. Like she can handle well enough to not be just outright destroyed, but knows that there are people around her who can take the fight to the villains if need be.
Well, the thing also is the way she says that she doesn't have a power that helps her in a fight, like that is just a direct lie, as part of her patter.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I guess I didn't even really think about that too hard, but yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just not the case. We've seen it be useful in fights. Well, at least once so far, but
Well,
we
my
will
argument is
continue
that
to see
it's
that.
useful in this exact second when she's telling the lie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it achieves the effect she wants, which is kind of continues to throw, or it messes with Uber and Lee's expectations nearly constantly.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, and then I mean I just noted one small thing here for Gru.
Yeah.
Uh Daddy.
Gross.
Gross. No, I mean Gru does the Gru things. He his actions are mostly to protect the rest of the group. He doesn't he does he's an active participant in the fight. He is often the one making the first moves on behalf of the Undersiders, but I don't think his moves are directly like, oh, let me beat someone down and knock them out of the fight. He's more like controlling the landscape a bit and making sure that he's got a good hand on the situation more so than anything.
Oh no, I just okay, good. I
Oh
was
yeah,
going back.
I heard your audio do a thing. Yeah.
I was well, no, I was oh knowing because I was going to check another chapter. I thought there is a chance that Gru is one of the offenders who double dips into the good girl well.
Oh no! Oh no! Please no.
I don't think so,
Uh,
but I thought there was a chance.
yeah. Vale says, "Oh no, I thought that about Gru too, but at least I didn't say it." Sheesh. Kidding, kidding, kidding. Um, Look, I'm here to give you the hard hitting news. Like, I'm not here to make friends. I'm if Gru's being daddy, I'm gonna tell you he's being daddy, and it's gonna be gross for everybody. I don't like it, but it's not about that.
I don't like it, he says while loving saying it. Gross.
Maybe I'll never tell.
Anyway,
Uh,
so I think is Uber and Leet next or is Taylor next?
let's do Taylor next.
Okay.
Let's finish up with the Undersiders.
Yes, so I'll continuing to show a knack for the hero villain banter. She's really able to fight even without her power here. She essentially doesn't use her power and is just a regular person. And she's fighting someone with like crappy equipment who's a tinker, so she's also basically just fighting a regular person. It's kind of odd. This is not a
Yeah,
common scenario,
no, not a
honestly.
traditional cape fight.
But yeah. So finally, in a situation where she feels there's no real victims if she goes all out, she feels justified in her position in the fight, and yeah, she really kicks this little boy's ass. I know he's an adult
Mm-hmm.
man, but he's kind of like a little boy.
Kind of like a little boy.
Actually, I have no
Yeah,
idea. I think they're like probably like late teens, early 20s is the vibe I got from these guys.
yeah, based on their whole shtick, I wouldn't think they're much older than like 22 or 23 or something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and just for Taylor in general, I mean, I like that she is more excited about this fight in a way, like, her smiling beneath her mask as she's getting ready to fight. Like, I don't know, it speaks to that, like, this isn't Taylor's not doing this inherently just out of some weird obligation morally. Like, part of it is, I think she thought this would all be kind of fun, and here's a situation that actually is kind of fun because it's not a big moral quandary for her. She just gets to like do the thing she wants to do and doesn't really have to like navigate it too carefully.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know why, but I just imagined for a split second, like Taylor working out wearing one of those shitty tap out shirts.
God.
I don't know why, but I was just like, yeah, she's
uh,
like one of those bros.
she's definitely listening to DMX in the background.
Yeah, yeah.
Naturally.
She does weights for way too long.
Yes, yes. But yeah, I mean, these aren't the most heavy Taylor chapters, so not too much to say on her aside from that.
Yeah, it's like normally her her perspective on this is giving us a background into like the city, into the characters, and
Hmm.
like sometimes it's more about that and sometimes it's more about like what she's thinking, but it feels like she's kind of going with the flow with the Undersiders. She's not feeling too stressed out. Like she's a little stressed about the Rachel situation and the money, but compared to later, it's just nothing. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Um.
give us that Uber and Leet. We'll just combine them. I mean, we can talk about them individually if you want, but we can
Well,
just
we'll
talk
I'll
about
talk
them
about them in
together.
the power section, but then for this, we'll do them as a combo. We'll just do what you already wrote because like well, yeah, and we'll talk about them a little more. But the notes by David are Jesus. These guys are chumps. Video game nerds, largely ineffective despite reasonably good powers.
Yep, that's them in a nutshell. They're big chumps. They like their video games. Oh, and I guess I mean one thing to speak about them is like the fact that they're I don't know streamers. I mean I won't say like they're not doing this just for the attention. I'm sure there's a lot of background. I mean, big nerds definitely have like a whole vengeance thing, so it makes sense that two nerds who get powers would become villains, but also um yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like that they're not doing this just to be malevolent, I suppose, that but they want to like turn this into sort of a power play for themselves and up their own status, even if their methodology is bad. I mean, it's bad. It's very bad.
Mm-hmm. I was also gonna say about them that they they have powers that to use them well, you have to be willing to like use them in an oblique manner. Like Leet, you know, if you think through what you're gonna do and make only like solitary big plays whenever you make a thing, like that's the whole thing. But for Uber, it's like he needs to do more like no the kind of things that normal people couldn't do because they're not skilled enough, but that theoretically a really well trained spy or whatever could do. And so if he was
Mhm.
going around like infiltrating stuff, getting information and resources for Leet, something like that, and then like Leet was building some super thing for like one big I don't heist, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Like these are the kinds of things where like even as a just a duo of just them they could already be a zillion times better, but they just need to not be like we're just gonna go out in two costumes like the guys right out in the open and throw fireballs or
Yeah.
whatever. Like it's when they talk about the like Mario and Bowser robbing the mint, it's
Yeah, like
like
hucking fireballs and
it's
gathering coins. It's just very like silly stuff.
yeah, it's like you know if you really just put in the brain work.
If these guys had the mind to do it, I mean they could cause some real damage given their two powers, but they just their interests are very minuscule. Also, Greg, touche. Yeah,
We got
imagine
tooshed.
having a stream. Only the nerdiest of nerds would do that.
Exactly.
Ouch.
Except we
Ouch.
live in the
Oof.
future where cool people's streams are actually way more popular than nerd streams. So even if we're nerds, we're not even popular.
See, Greg, we're not even
Boom.
popular, so get over it.
Yeah. That was me owning the lifts.
Well, someone has to, and I'm glad you're brave enough to do
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Um, so then I think we're on Bakuda.
Yes. Which we didn't take any drastic notes here, but this is a very cool intro to this character. And I think I think it's an introduction of a pretty compelling villainous character. Like comes in very much having the situation under control, and reveal, kind of slightly shows their hand in that they have an entire, well, what appears to be like a decent sized army of people ready to fight and under her control specifically.
And she got a background menschie before Uber and
Mm-hmm.
Leet even got a background menschie, because that happened at the
Yeah.
breakfast in Arc 2, and she was in
The news.
1.6.
Yeah, I think it was the
It was,
college thing.
well, no, it was the Arms Master conversation where Arms
Oh, yeah.
Master
Yeah.
tells Taylor about Bakuda, she is on Parahumans, but Taylor hasn't looked recently enough to see that until she's at school again in Arc 2. But yeah, and then Uber and Leet get talked about by Danny slightly
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm just saying, like Bakuda, there's your classic, just basic ass planting and payoff. We've been waiting
Yeah.
for the other shoe to drop from the lung thing for 3 arcs, and it's
Yes.
happening.
They finally picked up Chekhov's gun. They're
Yeah,
ready for it.
and I mean her finger is within the trigger guard. It is like unacceptable her bad trigger discipline on Chekhov's gun. Um,
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like, hey, slow down with that thing. That is dangerous.
yeah, you can't just point that
Uh,
anywhere.
yeah. But yeah, for Bakuda in general, I mean, I think we get in this next chapter, especially, you get a lot of really, really good Bakuda moments. So,
Mm-hmm.
just be prepared to get like a much wider scope as the type of villain Bakuda is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then for the powers knowledge and world building, I'll let you take the top section because I kind of wanted to read the blurbs I had written earlier.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. So I mean, just I guess this is more world building than powers knowledge, but these chapters with Uber and Leet specifically show the kind of the wider scope of how Cape stuff can meet pop culture, like having a stream of your villainous escapades, like this. While powers are a fairly recent development in this world, like I mean, not recent, but it kind of shows how it's already been quickly married into, yeah, like pop culture and how people get their entertainment and stuff. Like I can imagine there's probably also a chunk of heroes who do something similar and try to like make a whole show out of saving lives and stuff
I
like
I
that.
feel like you're probably right. Like the corporate teams definitely give off the vibe, like especially with what we learn in Ward. Like if you told
Yeah.
me one of the other teams aside from Reach, like that their main thing was that they like streamed themselves stopping criminals, like that wouldn't surprise me at all. Like Tiger and Bunny
No.
style, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for real. And like I don't know. I think Glory Girls touched on this already within in this, but it's like there's lots of like media. There's lots of photo shoots and stuff like that. So it kind of shows like the heroes are already sort of ingrained into pop culture. So it makes sense that the villains would try to do something similar. But of course, no national network is going to show that content. So of course, a private stream or whatever is probably the way to go about it.
Well, also like way
Um,
later in the book, not that Uber and Leap probably have any sponsors, but way later
yeah,
in the book, what's her name? Bambina. Bambina talks about how she lost sponsors because of uh, getting lowered in some sort of villain ranking board because they got like distracted by other people's actions, basically. But yeah, so Bambina was lowered because of the big moves that were being pulled by other people, and so she lost sponsors. So
yeah,
theoretically, people probably like really wealthy people, the kind of shitlords who have super PACs in real life. Those kind of people probably fund villains, and there's probably like Shadowrun style like corporate espionage going on too.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the equivalent of like modern day lobbying, where it's basically like, yeah, there's definitely super PACs, there's definitely groups who are throwing money at things that meet their ends, and I am positive in the Brockton Bay, or I mean in this world's political sphere, there's a lot of interest in what some villains can bring to the table. So it would be no doubt in my mind that there's a lot of oh, Vale says anyone can have a super PAC. I mean, I guess that's
I mean, the
true.
kind of people who can, let's say, throw in 14 million to a cause when it takes about 10 million to get through the entire process of a Supreme Court justice confirmation from like start to finish
Yeah.
because of the like national lobbying campaign that you have to essentially run on the public
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff like that. And or to like tank a justice the other way. Um,
Right. Well, and I mean, kind of a tangent here, but that does make me think like there are definitely villains who are like nationally notorious, like who are known to a wider group. But a lot of the villains we're dealing with now are much more localized, I assume. Um, so, I mean,
E88 is kind of national, like they're local in their footprint in some ways, but they like draw people from all over the country, and they're kind of like a hate symbol. And then on the other side of things, like the elite on the West Coast are supposed to be like people who are like racketeering capes that try to use their powers for non-combat applications and stuff.
right.
Um, so they're like, you better pay us protection money, see?
It gets very mobster, yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it just makes me think like if sponsors are a deal, or if we are talking about like, yeah, national lobbying groups trying to sort of sway culture to in a way that is advantageous for them. I wonder how many villains are widely known enough to, and but also non-lethal enough to both get sponsors like and keep public attention.
And not end
um
up with like a kill order.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It makes me curious.
You missed us talking about the kind of dynamics of super PACs and the idea of buying cape services instead of buying like national media coverage. And how there would be, I guess we didn't say it explicitly, but there would be like a major PMC problem, I think, with capes. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, we started a super PAC.
Yeah, yeah, just now. It was very good actually.
Yeah,
It's very effective, and we're political now. It's not really like a big deal, but we are
we're
changing the
pretty cool.
world, $1 at a time.
$1.
So if you want to fund our super PAC, I'll send you a link to my Patreon, um, and all the details can be found there.
I mean,
Um,
some of this we're memeing, but some of this we really did talk about those topics, but we really didn't start a super PAC.
Well, we really didn't wink. Start a super PAC, and you really can't wink. Go to my Patreon and donate. Um, uh, sorry. Okay. Well, we can move on.
Anyway,
The other the other bit of world building stuff, which is, I mean, I think we already dipped into this a fair sum, but just like the class discussions, this 4.5 specifically shines a light on how kind of poverty has developed over time and affected the folks of Brockton Bay.
and like it's
Um,
not always getting worse exclusively. Like it's always bad for the people, but there are times when it dips and is like an extra bad period, like when all those people had gotten whatever like respiratory disease had spread through what do you call
Storage,
it,
the
storage
docks, the
facility.
lockers, yeah.
Yeah, because the docks, they can spread out enough that they don't all get each other sick, but here
Hmm.
they're like literally within feet of each other if they walk out their own door.
Right, right. And yeah, I mean, it does, kind of, as you said, like this shows it demonstrates more of like a movement over time rather than like a single cataclysmic event or something like that.
And also just
It
feels so rooted in like the material reality. I know I said that before, but I think
mhm.
it's important because like a lot of this stuff in like different, I don't know, it's kind of like Vale has said in previous things, like I've read plenty of books that just did not impress me, and like
Yeah,
it didn't feel like the world building came from anywhere. It didn't like, it felt like really like kind of more of a
inspired almost.
diorama than like a, well, not that dioramas don't have crazy upper ends, but you know what I mean, like a very
Yeah, like a
simulacrum
shoebox
world.
diorama
Yeah.
of a world rather than like a real true recreation or something
Yeah,
like
this
that.
feels like a breathing city to me throughout the course of
Hmm.
the story. So,
Yeah, yeah, and they do, Wildbow does well to sort of paint background people in throughout and like other things going on that may not directly correlate to our protagonists or whatever, but do have an impact on them in some way.
hmm. And Vale put it really well just now. The some books read like a person playing with action figures. That's exactly what I meant. Yep.
Very, very much so. Yeah, 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 and this does not feel like that.
Yeah. Um, I think I'm going to jump down to the powers about Uber and Leet, and this does sort of loop back to their characters, as it's always intertwined to a certain extent.
Okay,
Um,
here, forgive me for 1 second. I am
mhm.
helping my wife open a very rude jar, so just give me a moment
Wow.
here.
Ooh, we got man
Um,
business on the podcast. This is a
I don't
first.
I don't think the man business is going well, everybody. I don't know what's going on with this jar. Wait, maybe I do. Hold on. Sorry, this is the most interesting thing going on right now. I think I loosened it for you.
I can
I think
only
I
hope
did.
that this is the manliest thing that ever happens on this stream.
Um, yeah. I mean, I do need to mow my lawn, so if you want to stick around for that, we could do that. But
No.
I don't think. Okay, this jar is a mystery. All right, we can move on now.
Um, Vale says
Sorry.
action figure one, chokes out villain figure. Action figure two, good girl.
Oh God. Okay, well then whoever's playing with these action figures needs a good punch in the mouth right now.
Oh, so aggressive.
Now kiss.
Or as the classic kissing noise that Greg and I use is,
Oh God, I
which
hate
I
that
I got
noise.
that from Caitlin Durante, very funny comedian. Um,
All right. All right. Yeah, go ahead and go into your powers knowledge stuff.
so I wrote up a little blurb for Uber and Leet. Did not really bother with much more than that, but here we go for Uber. I had initially thought to call this a combat thinker power, but that's just how he uses it. It's kind of just a regular thinker power. It can be applied to in so many contexts that there almost has to be more non-combat application than combat. He can kind of focus on any given technique and be a master of that for the time period when he's focusing on it. So he can do a combat leap or hack the Gibson or whatever, but even comboing the moves together can be tough because he has to switch focus and he doesn't really have any fundamentals to manage the shift. So Uber, I really see as one of those capes who could benefit a lot from the kind of training that Taylor and Brian do all the time. If he had a better baseline across the board in stuff that he values, like fighting, driving, and then any other area like let's say a lockpicking skill or just like whatever
Yeah.
thing, like literally anything, getting better balance, being more nimble,
Yeah, like basics of espionage and stuff like that.
yeah, then his power could take him really far because he'd have
Hmm.
like the basic coordination when he's like switching from move to move. He's really, really relying on his power in a way that makes him weak because he's not getting any reps in on anything.
Right.
And I put as a joke here. I bet this guy would make a great surgeon.
Yeah, I mean he'd be really good at saving your life only when actively focused on it. So like don't hand him a bagel or something while he's doing surgery and then he'll be fine.
Well, don't hand a normal surgeon a bagel, please.
Well, I mean, if it's like an everything bagel and you just toasted it and like I don't know, I
You
just
can't
figure
let
you
it go
want
to
to enjoy that
waste.
warm. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah. No, but yeah, they. Uh, he could just do so many different things with his power too.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bummer that his drawback, like, yeah, like I think what he
He
needs
could
to
be a
focus on most.
speedrunner and just get super chats or whatever,
Oh
because
my
he could
God,
beat
yeah.
any speed run.
Well, it just makes me wonder, like, how
Not any
granular,
speed run,
like
but
a single action is. Like when you say he could make, and I know you're mostly joking, like that he could make a great surgeon, but like, if would he be good, like hyper good at focusing on like using a scalpel and making a single cut, or would it be like the whole process of like
I legit
resolving
think
a
he can
medical
do, because
issue?
he can do like a full, like the jump kick and the landing both kind of thing. Like I imagine. So
Yeah.
I think that I think he could do a surgery like slow and steady, and like it would have to be certain like kinds that require less like switching
He
between activities. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as long as he had like a concrete list of steps, I think he could do it perfectly.
The other thing is in a surgery, you have a nurse and stuff, like multiple nurses and like sometimes multiple surgeons, like standing
Mm,
around doing different tasks. So
that's
he would
true.
do like the really crazy precision work on the spine or something because like
Yeah.
that's the thing that he can ultra master. And how much context can he take in is a great question. Like, could he decide to be the best world leader ever, the best socially aware rapper, etc. Yeah, I'm not sure how
Ah.
much is in this. I'm basing this off of some like small uh Wildbow comments from like that forum that he goes on a lot, Space Battles,
Mm,
because this is like transferred from there onto the wiki. And so I'm
mm.
kind of basing it because he says that he can like do any given technique and be a master of it when he's focusing on it, but I'm just not sure what a
Right.
technique entails. I just get the idea that it's not across the board skill at any given like he's not a master piano player, but
Right.
he can do that hand movement where you do triplets on one hand and quadruplets on the other.
S- See, yeah, I think what it makes me think of is like it's more drilled down into a single skill rather than a skill set. So like if you're talking about something like being the best world leader ever, like he could probably find himself being an excellent public speaker, but that wouldn't necessarily give him the ability to have like all of the contextual and world knowledge to be a successful like world leader. And same thing with like being the best socially aware rapper or something like that. Maybe he could give himself really great skill in like, I don't know, lyrical flow or like something like that, or the physical
Oh,
skill of enunciating in that way, but probably not lyric writing. You know
I
what I
had a
mean?
really funny idea where he
Mm.
could focus on writing the lyric, so he writes the lyric, and then he can focus on being able to tell if it's
Delivery.
woke or not. And then he's
Oh
like,
my
"Oh
gosh.
no, 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 no," and he just does
The
it over and
super
over
no.
again.
Uh-oh.
He's like,
That's
"Okay,
hilarious.
I can live with this one," and then he goes on to do the like focus on the actual delivery of the line. Oh,
Yeah, he would never be a good freestyler for that reason.
yeah. Or maybe he would be, but he couldn't freestyle woke. He could only be
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, his lyrics would be exclusively offensive, and that would be unfortunate.
Yeah, so we can't take him to the freestyle competition.
No, no, God, he will get thrown out.
Recorded tracks only.
Yep.
Uh, anyway,
Yeah,
so Leet, I'm gonna jump to his section. Leet
yeah.
is a tinker, but his gimmick is super limiting and terrible. He's got lots of potential, but he just wastes all of his options on short-sighted plans that they've done over the years, it seems like. He can make anything, but only once. This power could probably have done like really like large scale things if he did proper prep, didn't act on half-baked ideas, and thought things through, and then like acted with lots of intentionality. But that's a lot of asks, and the mindset that matches his power seems to be like pretty chaotic and weird. We never see in his
Hmm.
head, so we're not like fully sure. But we would probably need someone with like a balancing personality helping him to hold back from all the basic impulses he gets to make like the first thing he thinks of. And instead, he has Uber, who dives right into the dumb ideas rabbit hole with Leet.
Yeah, they unfortunately like feed into each other's uh outright nonsense a little too much. Like they're isolated, I think with the right guidance, both of them could be awesome, but yeah, together doing what they're doing, it's just largely ineffective, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're just wasting their own time and everybody else's.
Yeah, and like the bummer for them, I think, is like their mission statement, like it does not provide a very good end goal. Like it's not working towards any real grand plan. It's just kind of this vague, I don't know, idea that they're like, yeah, we'll show how cool video games are. And it's like, well, no one cares about that, to be honest with you. Like no one gives a shit.
Yeah, they do
Uh,
not care, and you are making them think video games are even dumber than they thought before. So, yeah.
yeah. And as Vale's saying, Vale's got a couple hits in the chat here. Uh referencing Uber's ability to freestyle. His first freestyle was called "Good Girl," and the world threw up. That was my line. There is a kids book in the genre named Dawn. Okay, I'll have to take a look at that. And Don't Tell My Parents I'm a Supervillain, where the MC has a very similar power to Leet. It was super fun to read. Hard to get past the super wire writing, but it was just fun. That sounds great. I
Hmm.
will have to check that out.
Hmm. They maximized the Y in the YA.
Have to. The young adult, YUNG.
Hmm. I mean,
Uh,
the unfortunate is when it goes too far and it's the Carl Jung adult section.
ooh, yeah, now it's a little much.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I guess it's just yeah. As far as other people's powers or anything like that, nothing too. We don't really learn anything too noteworthy.
we get our typical every week me saying, but look at Regent's power, guys. So we do get that. Because
Yeah,
guys, look at Regent's power. Look,
yeah,
nobody
look
can
at him
beat him.
go. No one could beat that.
Do you
He's gonna
think?
make you twitch all over the
Do you
place.
think? I think that he could literally beat Uber and Leet in a 1v2. I think that he could just stop them and tase them like alone.
Actually, yeah,
I
yeah,
literally think he
probably.
could beat both of them together.
Yeah, I think so. Like Regent for main
Oh, oh
character.
wait, I
Let's
had an
do
idea.
it.
So
Oh.
it's Uber is dressed up as um Ava Unit 1 and Leet is dressed up as a actually no, wait, I'm trying to no, it's funnier the other way around. Uber is dressed up as Ava Unit 2 and Leet is dressed up as Ava Unit 1 and they are fighting Regent and they're doing the simultaneous dance thing, but it's because
Oh my
Regent is
God.
throwing them around, so they're simultaneously stumbling and falling in the same directions.
Oh, I fucking love it. That's so good. Also, yeah, Regent's power, someone fighting someone who's piloting a mech could be so fucking destructive.
Oh yeah. Oh, because we see something like that in Ward. Someone who
Hmm.
stops somebody on the controls of a jetpack.
Yeah.
Sorry, bud, you can't move your arm right now. Um.
Um, but yeah. So I mean, I think as far as things we learn, it's mostly Uber and Leet, and we'll get real into Bakura in the next one.
Mm-hmm. And then Oh, I did think it was funny how Gru used his power to throw Lead off his stride when he was like, "I'm gonna introduce the guest," and then it's like, "Fucked."
Yes, that was perfect. Even Gru has a penchant for dramatic timing, which is great.
Yeah. And then the other thing, I always kind of mention it, but forget to really just talk about it a lot. But I just love that Worm and all the surrounding stuff is free media. It's it just can do different stuff and can be a different thing. It doesn't have to think about any like what would a sponsor think. Like it's great. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the reason why this story and Wildbow's other stories and similar stuff is so interesting is yeah, because like they're only beholden to like what they perceive as the quality and what their audience would perceive as quality media. Whereas I think most publishers would look at this very large collection of chapters and arcs and all that stuff and be like, can we just dial this back to like the main beats here? And the answer should be no, we can't do that
Because
because that would be
it
fucking
was gonna
garbage.
have to be dialed back initially on before he had like enough Patreon support to do writing full time, but ever since he's been able to, he was able to more freely do what he wanted. But like Worm was only supposed to be around 25 arcs, and just imagine if you lopped off 26 and onward, like if
It
you
would be
like shoved
crazy.
all of that into what would have been like the equivalent of, so it would have been all of the rest of the story after 19 ends dealt with by within 6 arcs, so like 20 through
Right.
25, which
Just
is
would not have been enough
insane.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, not possible
Yeah.
in my opinion.
No. No.
um
And the cool stuff with this is like you get the opportunity for like community contributions, like
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
the several audiobook projects, like streams like this one, other smaller communities. Like it's pretty dope that people are kind of like free to explore and roam this content, like really pick it apart, do what they want with it, and you get a lot of interesting takes on all of this. Even just like us doing a little bit of a dramatic reading versus the actual audiobook doing a dramatic reading, like you can get a lot of different takes out of that.
yeah. Like part of
Um,
what I wanted to do with just this little back and forth that we had was just as like a total tangent, was that I think a lot of these scenes read really well if you just take out all of the like person said and you have the voice. I don't
mhm.
think that like the audiobooks should ever do that. That would be bad, but it can be
Right.
fun to have like just a little reading as the side. All that side stuff is important and adds like a cadence to the writing that I think is good.
Yeah.
But I just think sometimes the back and forth lets you feel how it would have felt for the characters rather than like in Taylor's head where like her thinker power can basically let her slow time while she's like overthinking a problem. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah. Hoorah to the free medias. Down with capitalism, I always say.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, for sure, for sure. Um, and then let's see. Did we want to do any other stuff before we jump into this week's tonal shift talk?
I think we covered the gambit pretty well.
Cool, cool, cool. So, I'm gonna go on to our audience participation thingy here and read Vale's answer. The tonal shift is nicely done. It's a resetting of expectations about the consequences and conflict. One layer peeled away with many more to come. The thing that is most interesting to me is about Taylor and bullying. How her first foray as a villain saw her bullying two heroes along with Tattletale and coming away from it as a clear victor in large part because of that psychological tool. In this conflict, it almost feels like she's settling in to another of the same versus Leet Nuber, and has the potential path to become a complacent bullying villain alongside Tattletale, wiped away. Uh, it almost feels like a possible path ending with this tonal shift. All right.
That's a great answer.
Interesting stuff. I'm gonna vamp a little bit on this topic to give people a little bit of a chance um, to answer in
What's
the
their
chat
responses
if
then?
they feel so inclined. Also, I just accidentally looked back over to the take a look at that snout. Phantom of the Opera, delightful.
It's so good.
That did make sense to me, Val. I think so. Let me
I think so.
check my brain. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see because she does consistently kind of like tear people down in these early things, and like a lot of
Mhm.
it is she's building up like intimidation cred and stuff. But yeah, I mean, she's kind of a jerk.
Yeah, and I mean, at least to Taylor's credit, like I think at this point she's not attuned with her power well enough to like know how to leverage it perfectly every time. So I think just reaching for whatever tactics are within her grasp and seeing like Tattletale's demonstration of that definitely would make her probably assume that that's something at
Well,
least,
another
you
thing
know.
is that she's really good at copying techniques that other people have used, and one of the
Oh
first
yeah.
things she sees is psychological torment no jutsu, as cast by Tattletale. So there's
Yeah,
that.
very effective there. Psychological torture no jutsu.
Pretty sure that's one of Naruto's techniques, right?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. I remember the hand signs for it.
Okay. And then do you, David, have an answer about talking about these tonal shifts?
Um, I mean, not a pre-prepared one, but I'll talk on it a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't
Um,
have a pre-prepared one either, but I'm gonna vamp a little bit too when you're done as well.
hell yeah. No, I mean, I think like it's really nice to see, especially in hindsight of the chapters immediately before this one. Like, I think the tone of the story, the larger story, this is cool because it's giving us more like a sense of like what the gang violence is kind of like. I mean, and not right out the gate with these chapters in particular, but like we see how bigger organizations try to play, and like Greg said it perfectly, just about how we're seeing Uber and Lee here. It's really just sort of whiplash us into the conflict with Bakuda, because we go from like a nice sort of congenial normal moment with this gang, like really getting to know one another, kind of sweetness, and then we're getting thrown into a pretty low stakes conflict, only to build into something much larger.
Well,
And
I wanna cut in for a sec. Part of what I
yeah,
was
sure.
thinking is that like it's like the bonding moments of 4-3 and 4-4, and then it
Hmm.
goes from the bonding to like the feeling like it feels as though there's expected betrayal in 4-4 from Rachel. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's how
yeah,
that's how
absolutely.
the tone of the writing is, and I think that's because Taylor expects that kind of thing, or we've been kind of primed for that by the story. Um,
Yeah, based on Taylor's experience, we're kind of conditioned to assume that that shoe will drop at some point.
right, right, and then we go from, and the story has had, because it's from Taylor's perspective, a mostly negative view of Rachel up to this point as well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it feels like they've been betrayed. Then in 4.5, not only do we realize that they haven't been betrayed, which is like its own swoop of victory, but we
Yep.
also realize that like they're just gonna have to beat Uber and Lead. Okay, yeah, bring it the fuck on.
Yeah, NBD, like let's fucking do this thing.
Yeah, need bugs daily. Um, uh, sorry. So
Oh,
yeah,
you're good.
and then you were
But,
kind of in the middle of something.
but yeah, yeah. I mean, and all of that's just to say, like the wider scope of this arc. Again, like I think its purpose is tonal shift in a large part. Like it's we're just continuing to be carried into what will become our new normal, and we rarely get a sense of in quotes normal in this book. Things don't really feel samey all that often until much later, but uh, yeah, I mean, I think we're being ushered into what the world of heroes and villains really can look like with this arc, and how that affects people's real lives a little bit and those intersections. Like, I don't know, world building is a big thing with this arc, and I'm really enjoying that. Um, so yeah, I mean, as far as the tonal shifts, I think they're fantastic. I think they, without the payoff in mind, can feel a little bit short-sighted at times. But now that we're going to start seeing that payoff pretty soon, like I'm just very excited for it.
Yeah, I forget. I think on the schedule, I'm trying to think if next week is Greg or Quinn. Because if it's Quinn, he will be fresh on these chapters for like the first time, and this is like kind of a
Yeah.
pivotal moment. Let me see. It is Quinn. Yes. So 4.7 and 4.8, kind of this big story shift. We'll have
Yeah.
somebody with a fresh perspective, and I think that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um,
and with that in mind, I want to address Vale's question in the chat.
mhm.
It's made me curious to see if or when she bullies in the future. The pouring juice on the head, laughing at victim bullying done to her is very similar to how she was starting to treat others. How much will that change or continue? That I think that's a great thing to bring up because I mean, Taylor kind of goes back and forth in her approach. It becomes more refined over time, but like there are definitely instances where she does make people feel bad. She is belittling. I wouldn't so much compare it to the like antagonism of the juice pouring on the head or anything like that. I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, William, but I don't think she really feels so malicious at any point. But she's very much a if it will benefit her ends, then she'll engage. At least she'll at least consider it. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
she
it.
kind of dips into that realm a little bit.
You know what's stupid is I was about to defend her, and I still am going to do this. I'm going to defend Taylor by saying like the thing that she does in say the stakeout in arc 23 is
Hmm.
like more. I wouldn't call it bullying because it's so far over the line. It's just like psychological torment.
Yeah, it can get a little fucked up.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's how I was going to defend her to say she's not a bully. She's just doing this other
she's
worse thing.
she's just a straight up villain.
But she's very,
Yeah,
very good at it.
yeah, exactly. And again, for her, it all feels like a means to an end, not like a core part of her personality. Um, but it's there. It's definitely there. It's within reach for her all the time.
Yeah, and I mean it becomes an important tool that she reaches to when she's desperate. It's kind of like
Yeah.
you'll see what she does when she is confident in a fight because there are fights she'll walk into where she kind of just
Is it?
walks all over the other person and doesn't even think about it. You know what I mean? And she
Yeah,
does not get
absolutely.
all fired up. She does not like do any of the taunting stuff like that. Like
Right.
I'm thinking of some of the like mid book fights like that where she just like takes people down with casualties and like her mind state doesn't change that much, but it's when
Yeah.
she's like in this early game doesn't have bugs. It's when she's like scared. It's when her opponent is like obviously much like more directly powerful than her in terms of like
Right.
superpowers. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at this stage where she doesn't really know how to leverage her power all that well yet, I think it makes her resort to lesser versions of antagonism, I suppose.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Bugs up the nose didn't work. Sigh. Get me a juice box.
Well, I was thinking of like whatever horrifying line she says about the bugs that are eating people outside her little lair later on, and then she's like, she drinks some of her tea, and she's like, bitter. The tea bag gets spilled into.
Oh,
It's just really
Taylor.
funny.
That's yeah, that's
It's
it's
like really good
goobery.
writing, but it's great. You know
So
what?
good.
That's something else that I feel like we don't mention enough. Like, just these books, they get grim, like super grim, but they are
Very
funny.
much so.
They are
Oh
so
yeah.
funny.
One character I'm not going to spoil with the details of this, but one character that continues to come to my mind, it's not really relevant or germane to this chapter, but is fucking Grey Boy as far as how brutal this world can get.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, fucking, I just think about that particular power, and when we'll get to that point in the story, um, yeah, it shows like how fucking raw this story can get as far as like villainous powers and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It
you
it really
know,
does. Like they get bad.
it gets bad. You know, Taylor with lemon juice could be a thing. That bitter tea line is possibly the most iconic and classic Taylor in the whole story. Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah, I love that part. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
um, with all that, I'm just gonna read out my question for chapter 4.x, aka interlude 3 and 1/2, Caden chapter. Talk about your thoughts on Max comparing Caden to himself and her protestations. How much of a difference between them do you see? And then, yes, so that will be for that chapter. And so I am just going to start outroing here. The music I'm using for this outro and that we also used for the intro is Mist Over Pendle by CO.AG Music. The author of the work being discussed can be supported at patreon.com/wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. There's also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. Org.
Yeah.
Thanks for co-hosting with me, David, and thank you guys for being in the chat. See y'all next week. Bye.
See y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for letting me on here. Bye.